Welcome back to the deep dive. I want to start today with a feeling that I think we all know very intimately.
Oh, yeah.
It's that specific kind of vertigo you get when you look at politics, technology, the economy, even just your own face in the mirror, and you realize that absolutely nothing is standing still.
Right.
That stability is, I don't know, it's a lie we tell ourselves so we can get through the day.
It's the feeling that the ground under your feet isn't actually solid ground at all. It's more like a conveyor belt.
Exactly, conveyor belt, and it feels like it's moving faster than you can walk.
And you can't get off.
I can't get off. And today, we are tackling the first man in history who looked at that chaos, that terrifying feeling, and he didn't try to fix it. He didn't try to stop the conveyor belt.
No, he did the opposite.
He said, no, the movement is the point. We are talking about the dark philosopher, the Riddler, the man who arguably invented the very concept of change itself, Heraclitus of Ephesus.
He's a massive figure, and honestly a really difficult one.
Oh, for sure.
When you start digging into the sources on Heraclitus, and what we have is, a bunch of fragments, some later biographies, and a lot of critiques from people like Plato and Aristotle, you realize pretty quickly that he was not writing to be liked.
No.
This is not a self-help book to make you feel better about your day.
No, he actively despised his audience, which, I have to say, is a pretty bold marketing strategy for a philosopher.
It is.
Here is my masterpiece. I hate all of you. Please read it.
It is certainly a unique approach. He's the ultimate anti-populist. He's living around 500 BC in this incredibly vibrant commercial city, Ephesus. But he looks at his fellow citizens and he just sees sleepwalkers.
Yeah,
He thinks they're zombies, yeah. And so our mission for this deep dive is to figure out why this grumpy aristocratic misanthrope, a guy who wrote in riddles and supposedly died covered in cow dung.
You have to get to that story.
We will. Why he holds the key to understanding everything from modern physics to the human soul.
There's a lot to get through. We're going to get into that famous river quote, which I know we're going to maybe not debunk, but definitely complicate.
Oh, for sure.
We're going to talk about why he thought war was the father of everything good.
Which sounds terrifying.
It does. And we really need to wrap our heads around this concept of the logos. But before we get into all the heavy metaphysics, we have to situate him, because Ephesus isn't Athens.
No, and that's such a crucial distinction. When we think of Greek philosophy, we usually picture Socrates, right? Walking around Athens, the Parthenon in the background, all these guys in white robes debating democracy.
Right, the classics.
But Heraclitus is Ionian. Ephesus is on the coast of what is now Turkey. It's Asia Minor.
So he's on the edge. He's on the frontier.
Geographically and culturally, yeah. Ephesus was a total melting pot. It was actually under the thumb of the Persian Empire during Heraclitus' life.
I didn't realize that.
So you have Greek rationalism just colliding with Persian mysticism, with Eastern religion. It's a massive trading hub. The Temple of Artemis is there, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world.
So it's a place of wealth, commerce, a lot of noise.
A lot of noise. And Heraclitus hates it.
He just hates all of it.
He loathes it. He sees the commercialism, the obsession with material goods, as just a total distraction from the truth.
Okay, let's talk about his social status, because this explains a lot of the attitude. He wasn't just some random guy shouting on a street corner. He was basically royalty, wasn't he?
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah.
The sources tell us he was from the ruling aristocracy. In fact, he was in line to be the Basileus.
The Basileus.
Now, by 500 BC, this didn't mean king with, absolute power like a pharaoh. It was more of a hereditary title. It carried really high-level religious and ceremonial duties.
So a position of immense prestige.
Huge prestige. You'd sit in the front row at the games. You would oversee the sacrifices. You were the face of the city's tradition.
It's the kind of job people would kill for. It's status. It's VIP access to everything.
And Heraclitus just gave it away. He abdicated. He handed it over to his younger brother.
That is a very specific kind of flex. To have the crown and just say, you know what? Keep it. I'm busy thinking.
It signals his priorities right out of the gate, doesn't it? He viewed the political games of Ephesus, all the striving for status, the debates in the assembly as just utterly beneath him.
He had better things to do.
He did. There's a wonderful anecdote, and like all ancient anecdotes, you have to take it with a grain of salt, but it captures his vibe perfectly.
Good.
He's found playing a game of Dicewell, Knucklebones, with some children, and he's doing it inside the sanctuary of the Temple of Artemis.
So he's hanging out in the holiest place in the city, sitting on the floor, playing games with kids.
Exactly. And the city elders, the politicians, they come around. They're probably looking for him to weigh in on some crisis or a legal dispute. They find him tossing dice, and they just stare at him.
I can just picture their faces.
And Heraclitus just looks up at them and snaps, "Why are you surprised, you good-for-nothing?"
Good-for-nothings. Wow. He does not mince words.
Not at all. He continues, "Isn't it better to do this than to engage in politics with the likes of you?"
Ouch. That cuts deep. But I feel like there's more to that image than just an insult. I mean, why dice? Why with children? It feels very specific.
That's a great question. Because, later in his fragments, Heraclitus actually says, "Time is a child playing a game of drafts. The kingship is in the hands of a child."
So he was acting out his philosophy.
He might have been engaging in a bit of performance art, yeah. The game of dice, it represents chance, fate, the kind of randomness of the universe. He's saying that the cosmic order is more like a child playing a game. It's innocent, maybe it's arbitrary, but it's flowing.
Whereas the politics of the cities
It's corruption and noise, yeah.
So the child is actually closer to reality, closer to the logos,
Yeah.
than the politician in his fancy toga.
Exactly. The child is playing. The politician is posturing. Heraclitus valued that authenticity above everything. He claimed to be self-taught, which in Greek culture was like almost a sin.
You were supposed to have a lineage.
It had to have a lineage. I studied under Thales, who studied under Heraclitus, just says, "I searched for myself."
He's the original do-your-own-research guy.
He is. And he went after the big names. He didn't just criticize the local politicians. He went after the culture heroes. He called Homer a fool.
Wow.
He called Pythagoras, the math genius, a fraud and a collector of bad ideas.
Calling Pythagoras a fraud is wild. That's like someone today saying Einstein didn't know math.
What was his beef with them? Was it just jealousy or something?
I don't think it was jealousy. I think it was a fundamental disagreement about what knowledge actually is.
Okay.
He felt they were what he called polymaths, people who knew many things but didn't have understanding.
Just learning a bunch of facts or the genealogies of the gods like Homer or geometric proofs like Pythagoras, that doesn't mean you understand the nature of reality. Heraclitus thought they were just looking at the surface, collecting data points, but completely missing the underlying unity, the logos that connects everything.
It's the difference between memorizing the dictionary and knowing how to write a poem.
That's a great way to put it.
Or maybe like knowing all the parts of a car versus knowing how to drive.
Or the difference between knowing the position of every star in the sky and understanding gravity. Heraclitus was interested in the gravity, the hidden force. He thought Hesiod and Pythagoras were just, cataloging the furniture while the house was burning down.
And this attitude earned him some pretty dark nicknames. We mentioned the dark, but also the Weeping Philosopher. I've seen those paintings, usually Rubens or Bramante, where you've got one guy laughing and one guy crying.
That's the classic duality, yeah. Heraclitus is the weeper, Democritus is the laugher. They're often paired together as these two archetypal responses to the human condition.
And they both see the same thing, the same world.
They both see the absurdity of life. They see that human endeavors are largely pointless, that everything changes, that we all die. But they react differently. Democritus, who comes a bit later and gives us atomic theory, he reacts with laughter. He thinks it's a cosmic joke.
Look at these idiots worrying about money when they're just atoms in the void.
Pretty much. A kind of nihilistic chuckle.
Right.
But Heraclitus, he feels the tragedy of it all. He weeps because people could wake up. The truth is right there. He calls it common to all. But they refuse to see it. It's not just that they were stupid. It's that they are willfully blind.
So his weeping is a form of compassion.
It's a very cold, distant kind of compassion. It's the frustration of a teacher who writes the answer on the board, but the entire class is just looking at their phones.
And eventually that frustration just drove him out of the city entirely. The stories say he retreated to the mountains.
The ultimate hermit mode. He lived on a diet of grass and herbs. He completely rejected civilization. And this leads us to the rather gruesome legend of his death.
Okay.
And I have to warn you and our listeners, this is one of those stories that is almost certainly too symbolic to be true, but it's forgettable.
This is the cow dung story. I've been waiting for this.
It is. So the story goes, Heraclitus develops dropsy. In modern medical terms, this is edema severe water retention. His body is swelling up with fluid.
Right.
He comes down from the mountains and goes to the doctors in Ephesus. But true to form, he doesn't just say, hey, I have edema. He asks them a riddle.
Of course he does. Why be direct when you can be obscure?
He asks if they can turn a rainstorm into a drought.
And the doctors are probably like, sir, we have leeches and herbs. We don't do weather control.
They are completely baffled. So Heraclitus gets disgusted with their lack of insight, and he decides to cure himself using his own philosophy.
How does that work?
Well, he believes that heat dries up moisture. Fire conquers water. So he goes to a cow stall and buries himself in manure.
Wait, what?
He buries himself in a pile of fresh cow dung.
And the logic here is that the fermentation of the manure generates heat.
Yes. He thought the heat of the dung would essentially evaporate the dropsy out of his body. He was trying to bake the water out of his system.
That is a desperate move.
It did not work.
I'm shocked.
One account says he died right there, and when they pulled him out, he was unrecognizable. Another account, the much gnarlier one, says that because he was covered in dung, the local dogs didn't recognize him as a human.
Oh, no.
And they devoured him.
Good Lord. That is a horrific way to go.
Yeah.
But you hinted before that this might be a constructed story. Why?
Well, think about his philosophy for a second. Heraclitus taught that it is death to souls to become water.
Right, the dry soul is best.
He associated moisture with stupidity, sleep, and death. He associated fire and dryness with wisdom and life. So for the dry soul philosopher to die of dropsy, a disease of too much water, and then to bury himself in dung, which is wet earth, it feels a little too perfect.
It's an ironic punishment. It's like a comic strip written by his enemies. Oh, you like dry souls. Here's a death by water.
Exactly. It was likely invented by the very people he called good-for-nothings as a way to make him look foolish in the end. It's character assassination via biography. But even if the story is fake, it reinforces how polarizing he was. He was the kind of guy who generated legends.
So we have a man who is royal but rejects power, wise but speaks in riddles, and potentially died trying to bake himself in a barn. That's the character. But he left something behind. One book.
One scroll.
Yeah, usually called On Nature. And he didn't put it in a library. He deposited it in the Temple of Artemis. That wasn't just for safe storage, was it?
Most scholars don't think so. Placing the scroll in the temple was an act of dedication. It was a signal that this work wasn't for the marketplace. It wasn't for the common reader.
So it's for the god.
It was for the god and for those who were, let's say, initiated enough to enter the inner sanctum.
It's extreme gatekeeping.
It is intentional gatekeeping, for sure. Heraclitus didn't want his words to be consumed easily. He wanted them to be struggled with. There's a distinction in how he wrote. He wrote in these short, punchy, dense sentences. Aphorisms.
Like nature loves to hide.
Or dogs bark at what they do not know.
Yeah.
He isn't building a linear argument like premise A leads to premise B. He's more like he's flashing a light in a dark room. You get a glimpse of the truth and then it's gone and you have to figure out what you just saw.
It reminds me more of poetry than philosophy. Or maybe like Zen koans.
That's a very, very apt comparison. A koan is designed to break your logical mind so you can see reality directly. Heraclitus is doing something similar.
And he got this from the oracle at Delphi.
He was heavily influenced by it. He even says, the Lord whose oracle is in Delphi neither speaks nor conceals, but gives a sign. And that was Heraclitus's model. He didn't want to explain the universe to you. He wanted to give you a sign so you could figure it out yourself.
Which brings us to that great story about Socrates reading Heraclitus. The playwright Euripides lends Socrates the scroll. And Socrates is supposed to be the smartest guy in Athens, right?
Well, supposedly. And Socrates hands it back and says, the part I understood was excellent. I dare say the part I didn't understand was excellent too.
That's a great line.
But, he says, it requires a Delian diver to get to the bottom of it.
A Delian diver? What's that?
They were sponge divers from the island of Delos who were famous for being able to hold their breath and go incredibly deep. So Socrates is saying, this isn't shallow water. If you want this wisdom, you have to risk drowning.
I love that. It's like a warning label. Risk of drowning in thought.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's take the plunge. Let's talk about the water. The river.
Doctrine of Flux.
Right. So if people know one quote from Heraclitus, it's you cannot step into the same river twice. It's on coffee mugs. It's in inspirational calendars. And usually it's interpreted as life is short, things change, so cherish the moment.
Which is a lovely sentiment, but it is completely missing the philosophical depth of what Heraclitus was actually doing.
Okay, so let's break it down. You mentioned before we started that there are actually different versions of this quote. We don't have the original.
Yeah, that's key. We don't have Heraclitus's book. We only have quotes of him by other people. So Plato quotes him one way, Plutarch another. But the version that most scholars, guys like G.S. Kirk, think is the most authentic comes from a guy named Arius Didymus.
Okay.
And it goes like this. On those who step into the same rivers, different and different waters flow.
On those who step into the same rivers, different and different waters flow. Okay, the grammar there is really interesting. He's specifically asserting that the river is the same.
Bingo.
Yeah.
That is the crucial point that almost everyone misses. He isn't just saying everything changes and nothing is stable.
Yeah.
He's saying that the stability of the river depends entirely on the change of the water.
Unpack that for me a little bit.
Okay, imagine a river where the water just stopped flowing. It just froze in place.
It would become a lake.
Yeah.
Or a swamp.
Well,
or a block of ice.
Exactly. It would cease to be a river. The river is a structure, it's a form. But the stuff that makes up the river, the H2O molecules, is constantly rushing away. So the identity of the river is maintained by the flux of the water. If the change stops, the river dies.
That is actually profound.
Okay.
Because we usually think of identity as a thing. Like, I am a rock. A rock just stays a rock.
Right.
But Heraclitus is saying true identity is a process.
Yes, and think about your own body. This is the best modern application of this idea. You think of yourself as a stable object. You look in the mirror, you see me. But biologically, you are a river.
Right.
Your skin cells are shedding constantly. Your red blood cells turn over every few months. Your skeleton completely replaces itself every 10 years or so. You are a pattern of energy through which matter flows. You are not the stuff. You are the burning of the stuff.
So stepping into the same river is a metaphor for existing as a living being. I am the same person I was 10 years ago, even though I'm pretty sure I have none of the same atoms.
Precisely. It's identity through change. But Heraclitus goes even further. In another fragment, he says, we both step and do not step into the same river. We both are and are not.
We are and are not. That sounds like a straight-up contradiction.
It is, and Heraclitus loves contradictions. He's pointing out that the observer is also changing. The you that steps into the river the first time is gone by the time you step in the second time. You have new memories, new thoughts, new cells. So the encounter between you and the river is a unique event that can never be repeated.
That's the vertigo coming back again. If I'm changing and the world is changing, how do we grab onto anything?
Well, some people couldn't handle that vertigo, and this is where we have to talk about Cratylus.
Ah, Cratylus, the fanboy who went too far.
He absolutely did. Cratylus was a follower of Heraclitus in Athens, and he essentially took the philosophy and turned it up to 11. He said, Heraclitus is wrong. You can't step into the same river twice. I say you can't step into the same river even once.
Because the water is moving so fast that before your foot even hits the bottom, it's a different river.
Exactly. Cratylus took the flux to the absolute extreme. He believed that things change so fast that you can't even name them.
What do you mean?
If I point to a chair and I say the word chair, by the time the sound leaves my lips, the chair has aged, the atoms have shifted. The word chair no longer accurately applies to that object.
That seems deeply impractical.
It's incredibly impractical.
Yeah.
Aristotle tells us that Cratylus eventually decided that speaking itself was a lie, so he stopped talking.
He stopped talking completely.
Completely. He would just sit there and wiggle his finger.
He just wiggled his finger.
Yes. To indicate that everything is moving. Don't ask me, just look at the motion.
That is hilarious. But it also feels like he totally missed the point. Heraclitus wasn't a nihilist who thought words were meaningless.
No, Cratylus missed the structure. He missed the riverbed. Heraclitus believed in the river and the flow. Cratylus only saw the flow. Heraclitus believed there was a logic holding all that change together.
And that logic is what brings us to the next big idea, the unity of opposites.
Yeah.
This feels like the engine room of Heraclitus's whole universe. If everything is changing, how is it changing?
It changes through the conflict, the tension of opposites. This is the core doctrine. Heraclitus believed that we make a fundamental mistake when we separate things into hot and cold, good and bad, day and night, as if they are separate realities.
He says they're the same thing.
He says they are one and the same. They're two sides of the same coin. And he uses some very physical, very simple examples to prove this. Let's talk about the road.
The way up and the way down are one and the same.
Right. It's so simple, but it really does break your brain if you dwell on it. If I'm at the bottom of a hill, I see a road going up. If you were at the top of that same hill, you see a road going down.
And we could argue all day, it's an up road. No, it's a down road, but it's the same road.
The identity of the road contains both upness and downness simultaneously. The apparent contradiction just depends on your relationship to it. He does the exact same thing with seawater.
Right, seawater is the most pure and the most polluted water.
For a fish, it's drinkable and life-sustaining. For a human, it's undrinkable and deadly. So is seawater good or bad?
It's neither, or it's both.
It's both, depending on the context, but here is where it gets really interesting. Heraclitus suggests that these opposites aren't just subjective, they are necessary for existence itself. And this is where he uses the image of the bow and the lyre.
This is my favorite image of his. There is a harmony in the bending back, as in the case of the bow and the lyre.
Think about the physics of an archery bow. You have the piece of wood, which naturally wants to be straight, and then you have the bowstring, which is pulling the ends of the wood together, bending it.
So they're fighting each other, the wood pushes out, the string pulls in.
Exactly. They are in a state of constant tension, constant conflict. But it is precisely that conflict that makes it a bow.
Right.
If the wood wins and snaps the string, it's just a straight stick. It's useless. If the string wins and snaps the wood, it's just a pile of rubble.
So the weapon, the structure, the function only exists because of the fight between the parts.
And a lyre, the musical instrument, is the same thing. You have to tighten the strings, pull them against the frame to get a note. If you relax the tension, you just get silence. The music comes from the tension.
Okay, this leads directly to his most controversial statement. War is the father of all and king of all. When I first read that, my first thought was, okay, this guy's a fascist. He sounds like he's glorifying violence.
It's so easy to read it that way, especially with modern ears, but he's using war polemos in Greek in a much more metaphysical sense. He means strife, conflict, tension.
The tension in the bow.
Exactly. He is saying that reality itself is the result of these competing forces.
So without the war between the string and the wood, there is no bow. Without the war between gravity pulling in and fusion pushing out, there is no sun.
You've got it. He
Okay.
actually criticized Homer for this. There's a line in the Iliad where Achilles prays, "Let strife vanish from among gods and men." It sounds like a really nice prayer for peace.
It does. Can't we all just get along?
But Heraclitus calls Homer a fool for it. He says if that prayer were ever answered, the universe would be destroyed.
Because if the tension snaps, everything just collapses into, what, a puddle.
Into a static, undifferentiated mush. Into death. Heraclitus gives this really great earthy example of the kykeon.
Kykeon.
This was a popular drink in ancient Greece, a mixture of wine, grated cheese, and barley meal.
Sounds kind of junky.
It was very chunky, and Heraclitus notes, even the kykeon separates if it is not stirred.
Ah. If you let it sit, the cheese sinks to the bottom, the barley settles. It separates into its parts. You have to keep stirring it, agitating it to keep it a drink.
That agitation is strife. The universe requires constant stirring to maintain its structure. If you stop the stirring, if you achieve total peace, you achieve total death.
There's such a radical idea. We spend our whole lives trying to get rid of stress, trying to solve problems, trying to reach a state of peace. And Heraclitus is standing there saying, no, the stress is what is holding you together.
It reframes your entire life, doesn't it? That tension you feel between who you are and who you want to be. He'd say that's not a bug, that's the feature, that's the bowstring.
Okay, so let's move from the how to the what. If the universe is a stirred drink, what is the drink made of? The philosophers before him had some pretty simple answers. Thales said everything is water, and Anaximenes said air.
And Heraclitus comes along and picks fire.
Why fire? Is it just because he was a grumpy guy who liked destruction?
It's tempting to think that, but no, it fits perfectly with everything we've just discussed. Think about the other elements. A rock, which is earth, can just sit there for 1,000 years.
Right.
Water can sit in a cup, air can be still, but fire is never still.
A flame is a process, it's not a thing.
Exactly. You cannot hold a flame in your hand. A flame is the consumption of fuel.
Yeah.
It is the transformation of wood into smoke and heat. Fire is pure change, is pure activity. So for a philosopher who believes that everything flows, fire is the perfect physical manifestation of reality.
So he's saying the universe isn't made of little Lego bricks of matter. It's made of burning.
Yes. He has this amazing line. This world order, no god nor man did create, but it ever was and is and will be, ever-living fire, kindling in measures and being quenched in measures.
Kindling in measures and being quenched in measures, that part is important. It implies there are rules. It's not just a wildfire destroying a forest randomly. It's more like a controlled burn.
Right. It follows a law. He talks about the turnings of fire. Fire turns into sea, which is water, and sea turns into earth, and then earth turns back into sea, and sea back into fire. It's a cycle.
It sounds almost like an economy.
He actually uses that analogy. He says, all things are in exchange for fire, and fire for all things, even as wares for gold and gold for wares.
That's brilliant. Fire is the cosmic currency. Just like I can trade gold to get a pair of shoes, the universe trades fire to create a rock. And eventually that rock gets traded back into fire.
It suggests a conservation of energy thousands of years before physics proved it. Nothing is lost, only transformed.
But did he believe the world would actually, burn up? I've heard about this idea of the ekpyrosis.
The Great Conflagration. Yeah, this is an idea that the Stoics, who came much later, really loved and ran with. They interpreted Heraclitus as saying that eventually the whole universe will turn back into fire, a massive cosmic bonfire, and then, from the ashes, it will start over.
Like a phoenix, or like the Big Bang and the Big Crunch cycle.
Exactly, a cyclical universe. Now, whether Heraclitus himself meant this literally or if he just meant the constant local exchange of fire is debated by scholars, but the image of the world as this fire that never dies is one of the most powerful images in all of philosophy.
Okay, let's talk about the rule book for this fire. We mentioned that it burns in measures. It's not chaotic. And this brings us to what might be his biggest idea, the logos and the soul.
The logos. This is perhaps the most important word in Heraclitus' entire vocabulary.
It's a word with a million meanings. In Greek, logos can mean word, speech, story, reason, account, math. What does Heraclitus mean by it?
He plays on all of those meanings. But primarily for him, the logos is the rational structure of the universe. It is the formula by which the fire burns. It is the logic of the change.
So if the river is the flux, the logos is the riverbed, the thing that directs the flow.
That's a really good way to put it. Or you could think of it like the source code of the matrix. You look around and you see a chaotic world reign, people, traffic. But behind it all, there is a source code running the simulation. That code is the logos.
And Heraclitus thinks we're completely ignoring the code.
He thinks we are totally deaf to it. He says, though this logos holds always, humans prove unable to understand it. He complains constantly that people live in their own private worlds.
Idios cosmos.
Yes. The idiot, which in Greek just meant a private person, someone disconnected from public affairs, lives in a fantasy. They think their own opinions matter. Heraclitus says, listening not to me, but to the logos, it is wise to agree that all things are one.
He's saying, don't take my word for it. Look at the data. Tune into the cosmic frequency.
He wants us to wake up. He compares the average person to a sleeper. When you're dreaming, you are in a private world. When you wake up, you enter the common world. The logos is that common world.
Connects directly to his view of the soul or psyche. He had some very weird, very specific ideas about what the soul is made of.
He thought the soul was a physical thing. It was a part of the cosmic fire. And because it's related to fire, he says a dry soul is best and wisest.
Dryness equals intelligence.
Yes. Fire is active, it's ascending, it's bright. Water is heavy, descending, dark. So a dry soul is one that is intellectually active and close to the logos.
And a wet soul.
A wet soul is damaged, it's sluggish. He says it is death to souls to become water.
This gives us maybe the best anti-drinking ad in history. Heraclitus has a fragment about drunk people.
He does. He says, a man, when he is drunk, is led by a beardless boy, stumbling, not perceiving where he is going, having his soul moist.
Having his soul moist.
Oh.
It's such a gross, visceral description, but it makes perfect sense in his system. Alcohol is literally putting out the fire of your mind.
It dampens your cognitive spark. You become heavy, watery, irrational. You lose touch with the logos.
But even though he talks about the soul in these physical terms, he also recognized its depth. He has that quote, "You will not find the boundaries of the soul by traveling in any direction. So deep is its measure."
I love that fragment. It balances out the physics of it. He's acknowledging that the inner world consciousness is just vast. It's a universe of its own. You can map the whole earth, but you can't map the human mind. He's anticipating psychology by 2,500 years.
He really does seem to anticipate everything, which brings us perfectly to his massive legacy. This guy didn't just fade away into the history books. He haunts philosophy.
He is a ghost that will not leave. The Stoics were the first to really pick him up and run with him.
Marcus Aurelius quotes him, right? the Roman emperor.
Repeatedly.
Yeah.
The Stoics absolutely loved the idea of the logos, that there is a divine plan or reason governing the universe. They used Heraclitus to argue that we should accept our fate. If the universe is a burning fire governed by reason, then whatever happens to you is part of the plan.
Amor fati, love of fate.
Exactly.
And then, really weirdly, the Christians picked him up, which makes zero sense to me. He was a pagan who thought the world was eternal fire, not created by God.
It was all about one word, logos. The Gospel of John begins with that unbelievably famous line, "In the beginning was the Word, and archein o logos, and the Word was God."
So early Christians read Heraclitus and thought, wait a minute, he's talking about Jesus.
Basically, Justin Martyr, an early church father, actually called Heraclitus a Christian before Christ. He argued that because Heraclitus lived by the Logos and because Christ is the Logos, Heraclitus was unknowingly a Christian.
That is the ultimate posthumous rebrand, from arrogant misanthrope to honorary saint.
And it doesn't stop there. Jump forward to the 19th century, German philosophy, Hegel.
Hegel is famous for being impossible to read, so maybe they were kindred spirits.
I think so. Hegel famously said, "There is no proposition of Heraclitus which I have not adopted in my logic." Hegel's whole system, the dialectic, where a thesis meets an antithesis to create a new synthesis, that's pure Heraclitus.
It's the bow and the lyre.
Yeah.
Progress through conflict.
Exactly.
And Nietzsche, he had to have loved this guy.
Nietzsche adored him. Nietzsche saw Heraclitus as a brother. He loved the aristocratic arrogance, the affirmation of war and strife, the idea of the world as innocent play. Nietzsche called him a proud, lonely truth finder.
And even in modern logic, he's still causing trouble.
Oh, absolutely. Aristotle hated Heraclitus' logic because it violated his law of non-contradiction. You can't say the road is up and the road is not up.
Right. A thing can't be A and not A at the same time.
But modern dialetheism, which is a niche but fascinating field in logic, argues that for things in motion, contradictions can be true. Heraclitus is the patron saint of anyone who thinks the world is too complex for simple, true-false boxes.
It's incredible. He's been dead for 2,500 years, presumably dissolved back into the elements. But his fire is still burning.
He is still agitating the kaikion, still stirring the pot.
So let's wrap this all up. We've covered a lot. The river, the fire, the war, the logos. If the listener takes away one thing from all this, one tool for their modern life, what should it be?
I think the synthesis is this. We need to stop viewing change and conflict as errors. We tend to think that if things are changing or if there is tension in our lives, something has gone wrong. We want the flat lake. We want the slack string.
But Heraclitus says the slack string makes no music.
Exactly. He teaches us that stability is an illusion, or rather, stability is a dynamic feat. It's like riding a bike. You are stable only because you are moving forward. The moment you stop moving, you fall over.
And he tells us to keep our eyes open for that movement. If you do not expect the unexpected, you will not find it.
Which is the ultimate advice for a researcher, a scientist, or just a human being trying to navigate the world. Don't impose your neat categories on reality. Let reality reveal its strange, contradictory nature to you.
So here's a final provocative thought to leave you with. We talked a lot about the river and the self. We spend so much time in our culture trying to find ourselves.
Right.
We take personality tests, we go on retreats, we try to define who we are. I am an introvert, I am a creative, I am an ENFP.
We try to freeze the river into a solid block of ice so we can label it.
Exactly. But what if Heraclitus is right? What if the self isn't the thing you find? It's not a treasure chest buried in the sand. Maybe it's a pattern of fire. A candle flame looks like a stable object, doesn't it? It has a shape, it has a color. But it isn't an object, it's a process, it's a burning. It's just gas turning into heat and light.
So maybe we aren't the wax. We are the fire itself.
And maybe that tension you feel in your own life, that pull between safety and risk, between who you were and who you are becoming, maybe that isn't a problem that needs to be solved.
Maybe that tension is the very energy that is keeping your flame alive.
Strife is not the end of the world. It is the birth of the world.
That is a beautiful way to put it.
That is where we will leave it. Thank you for listening to this deep dive into the dark philosopher. Go step in a river, realize it's not the same river, and we'll see you next time.